So yes, now we'll start with the third chapter, which deals with audit planning. Now, if you see, if you are going for any tour, you will plan your tour, right? So which locations you have to visit, at what time you should be present at that particular location, all that you will plan. So after all, for a tour you are preparing a plan, and this is about audit. In order to do proper audit, planning is very much necessary, right? And the aspects that has to be covered in the planning are discussed under a separate standard, which is SA-300. Okay, SA-300 deals with planning. All the aspects with respect to planning are covered in the single standard, which is SA-300. Okay, now if you see, till now we have completed two standards from the list of our standards. SA-200 we have completed, SA-210 we have completed, right? Now we are going to SA-300. See, I'll not be taking you in the chronological order. Okay, based on the linking of the standard, I'll be telling you in the class. Okay, because if I just go in the chronological order, you will not understand the interlinking between the standards properly. So in the first class we have written the list of standards. Okay, I guess here the list is missing. Okay, no issue, but we have clarity that we have completed just two standards, right? As usual, as we have done for other chapters, similarly we will be first of all discussing from the PPT. So the name of this chapter is audit strategy, audit plan, audit program. That means by seeing the name of the standard, you can come to a idea that audit planning includes three parts. First, you will prepare strategy. Based on strategy, you will prepare plan, and finally you will prepare program. Okay, so these are the three separate documents that forms part of audit planning. Okay, so all these three are discussed in this standard SA-300, which is planning an audit of financial statements. Got it? Now if you see, the audit that we conduct, the entire audit that we conduct, it can be divided into three stages. The three stages: first stage is planning stage, which we are discussing now. Okay, so planning stage is the initial stage of audit, and the second stage is execution stage. So the planning stage will be dealt by SA-300, and execution stage will be dealt by various standards. There are various standards that deal with execution stage, like 315 deals with execution stage, 330 deals with execution stage, and even in 200 series also 230 deals with execution stage, 240, that is fraud, deals with execution stage. Like this, there are number of standards that deal with execution stage. Okay, and the final stage of audit is, any guess? Reporting, right? So after completing the entire audit, you will give your audit report. That is the final stage of audit. So what are the standards that deal with reporting? 700 series. The entire 700 series deals with reporting stage. Got it? So these are the three stages of audit. Now we are in which stage in our discussion? Planning stage, right? After that we will go to execution stage of standards. Got it? Now I told you that we should plan the audit. Auditor should plan the audit. Now why should we plan the audit? Okay, to conduct proper audit. I have also told you the example that just for going a tour also you will plan, and audit is very important task, and in order to achieve its objectives properly you should plan it. But the standard says there are two specific purposes or three specific purposes for which you have to plan the audit. See, you have to plan the audit so as to conduct effective audit in an efficient and timely manner. Now, here, what is meant by effectiveness and what is meant by efficiency? What is the difference between these two? Here, efficiency, it is okay, low cost, okay, but effectiveness, yeah. See, let me tell you the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Let me tell you with a normal example. Let's say, for example, you are preparing for your CA examinations, right? You are at your CA inter stage. Now, in the CA inter, there will be 6 papers, right? Now, let's say you are preparing for both the groups, okay? Both the groups you are preparing, and you have wrote your examination. After writing examination, let's say, for example, you cleared only first group, okay? You cleared only group 1, group 2 unfortunately you haven't cleared. Then in this situation it will be told that you are 50% effective. If you also cleared group 2, it would be said that you are 100% effective. Now if you see in this situation, how we are measuring effectiveness? We are measuring effectiveness on the basis of how much goal you have achieved, okay, how much objective you have achieved. So effectiveness is a measure of achievement of objective or the final result, that is known as effectiveness. Now what is the goal of audit? What is the objective of audit? That is one of the objectives. The main objective is to obtain reasonable assurance that financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, right? That point. So that is the objective of audit. So if you properly plan the audit, you will be able to achieve that objective. If you don't plan the audit, you will not be able to achieve that objective. So for the audit to be effective, you have to plan the audit properly. Got it? That is the meaning of the term effective. Next, efficiency. Efficiency means, let's go with the same example. Now there is student number 1 and there is student number 2. Both of these people, they are preparing for CA intermediate, both of these people, they are planning to complete both the groups. Okay, now student 1 has made his preparation for just 3 months. Student 2 has made his preparation for 6 months. But however, after writing the examination, both of them have cleared both the groups. Okay, both of them were effective only. But the time taken by student 1 is 3 months, time taken by student 2 is 6 months. Now tell me here, who is efficient? Student 1 is efficient, right? So efficiency means achieving the given objective with as much as lesser resources as possible. Got it? This is one way to define efficiency. Another way to define efficiency is with the given amount of resources, you have to achieve maximum output. That is also known as efficiency. Got it? So efficiency can be defined in two ways. Hope you understood what is meant by effectiveness, what is meant by efficiency. So why you will plan the audit? Effective and efficient audit. Got it? And also to complete the audit within the time limits. You will not have entire year to do the audit. There will be certain time limits. So if you have to complete the audit within the given time, you have to properly plan the audit, right? So these are the reasons why you will plan the audit. Got it? Any doubt? So effective means achieving the desired objective is known as effectiveness. Next, efficiency means achieving maximum results with minimum resources, or you can also write achieving maximum output with given amount of resources. Okay, that is what here it defined, right? You can also write achieving maximum results with minimum resources. Okay, they have covered both the point of views in single line itself. So that is the reason why you will plan the audit. Got it? Next, advantages of planning the audit. What advantages you will get because of planning the audit? There are various advantages of planning the audit, but here in the standard there are 6 advantages that have been listed. We will see all those 6 advantages. So the first advantage is attention to important areas. That means while planning, you will know prior to hand itself which areas in the organization is having high risk, which areas in the organization are most important. So based on that, you can allocate more time to such important areas, right? So the first advantage of planning the audit is you can give maximum attention to the important areas. Okay, next, timely resolution of potential problems. Now what is meant by potential problems? Potential means the one that might occur in the future is known as potential. Okay, presently that problem is not there, but it might occur in the future. So by planning the audit properly, you will be able to predict which problems might occur during the audit, and you can design a solution for those problems which might occur in the future. Okay, that is known as potential problems. Got it? That is timely resolution of potential problems. Next, Proper organization and management of the engagement. See, if you plan the audit, everything will be under your control. Okay, you will have a idea at what time what should be conducted. Okay, so you can properly organize all the phases of audit, and you can properly manage which resources has to be allocated to which area. Okay, so planning the audit will help you to properly organize and manage the engagement. Everything will be under your control if you plan the audit. Okay, next, proper selection of engagement team. Now, it is not necessary that everyone will have knowledge with respect to all the areas or all the aspects. Some people will be more experienced in certain area, and some people will be more experienced in another areas. Like some people will be more efficient in doing bank audit, they might not be knowing other audits, whereas some other people might be more efficient in doing audits of service industries, right? So if you plan the audit properly, you can decide whom you should include in your engagement team based on requirements of the entity, based on requirements of uh, based on the areas that has to be audited in the entity. You can include those respective people in your audit engagement team. Got it? That is also one of the benefit of planning the audit. And next, direction and supervision of engagement team. See, actually if you see the entire audit, mostly it will be done by the engagement team itself, the article students, paid assistants, these people only will do most of the audit. What the auditor does is he will direct and he will supervise these engagement team. So it becomes easy for the auditor to direct and guide and supervise the engagement team if there is a plan, right? If there is no plan, the auditor will also not know who is auditing which area, so he cannot provide proper supervision and proper direction to the engagement team. Got it? And finally, easy coordination in work done by auditors of components and expert. Now here, who is meant by auditor of component? Auditor of component means, no idea. See, generally component means subsidiaries, associates, joint ventures, all these taken together, we'll call them as component. Okay, for a holding company, subsidiaries, associates, joint ventures will become components of holding company. Okay, now auditors who have audited these subsidiary, joint venture, that is components, is known as component auditor. Got it? So it will be easy to you to coordinate with the component auditors, because if let's say you are auditing consolidated financial statements, you will be using the work of component auditors, so you have to coordinate with them. So planning will help you to coordinate with component auditors and also to coordinate with experts. See, let's say in the area, in the entity, there is a requirement to use the work of expert for calculation of some provisions, or for measuring how much inventory is present. Like what happens is, in case of let's say oil exploration companies, for oil exploration companies, the inventory is the oil that is present in the earth. Okay, basically they will take some contract from the government for 10 years or 15 years, and in that period they can extract the oil from the earth. Now in this situation, you don't the auditor cannot expect how much oil is present over there in the earth. Some experts are required to determine how much oil is present over there. So if auditor feels that for auditing any area of the entity, the need of an expert, the help of an expert is required. You can also properly coordinate with the expert if there is a plan. Got it? So these are the advantages of planning. Now I have told you that planning is the first stage of audit. Now while starting the audit, you will plan, right? And tell me whether in execution part and in reporting part, can you change this plan? You can change. It is not that since the planning is the first stage, you have to plan the audit only in the first stage and you should not change the plan in the remaining changes. No, planning is a continuous process. Okay, throughout the audit, planning goes on. Okay, see, planning is a continuous process. Planning is not a discrete phase. Discrete means separate phase. It is not a separate phase, rather a continuous and iterative process. Okay, iterative means keeps on changing. Okay, see, why the plan will change? Due to new information that the auditor might obtain, due to change in the circumstances, right? So there could be various reasons why the plan might change, right? Now if you see, planning begins shortly after completion of previous audit and continues till the conclusion of current engagement. That means almost during the entire audit period, planning will exist. Got it? See, in your final level also, all these standards again they will be repeated. What you are learning here, it is not just for the inter level, even for the final level also same standards. Apart from these standards, some additional standards will also be there. Okay, we have discussed now in the first class the additional series of standards SAE, SRE, those will also be there. Okay, shall I move to next slide? Now what will be included in the planning? If you see, the planning can be divided into two stages, or not two stages, two parts you can say. See, planning includes consideration of timing of certain activities and audit procedures, process prior to performance of further audit procedures. Now what is this further audit procedures? First of all, you know what is meant by audit procedure, right? Example of audit procedure. Audit procedure, example of audit procedure. See, for verification of debtors, what audit procedure you will perform? Confirmation. So external confirmation is one of the example for audit procedure. Got it? Watching is one of the audit procedure. Why you will perform audit procedure? To collect the evidence. Got it? So planning includes what audit procedures has to be performed. Okay, audit procedures, they will be of two types: risk assessment procedures and further audit procedures. We will see that in depth in the coming next chapter, that is in SA 315 we will see risk assessment procedure. So planning consists of what procedures auditor has to perform, see, and timing of those procedures, when those procedures has to be performed. Planning includes consideration of timing of certain activities and audit procedures prior to performance of further audit procedures. See, further audit procedures is the actual audit procedures that you will perform. Okay, you will understand this. This is the first time you are listening the term further audit procedure, risk assessment procedure, right? So you might not understand it, but going forward you will realize the difference between risk assessment procedure, that is RAP, further assessment procedure FAP, and what is the difference between these two, when you have to apply these two, all that we will discuss. But you just remember that planning includes these aspects. Okay, example, need to consider prior to auditor's identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement. What is meant by risk of material misstatement? Mistake, the probability of occurring misstatement in a particular area is known as risk of material misstatement. Is risk of material misstatement actual misstatement? No, it is just a probability that misstatement might be there. Auditor has to determine whether in that area actually there is a misstatement or not. For determining the actual misstatement, auditor will perform further audit procedures. Okay, for determining risk of material misstatement, auditor will perform risk assessment procedures. By performing risk assessment procedures, auditor has determined risk of material misstatement. Based on risk of material misstatement, auditor will perform further audit procedures to determine whether there is an actual misstatement or not. Okay, so prior to auditor's identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement, that means before auditor identifies the risk of material misstatement, there are certain activities that has to be performed. What are those activities? Like performing risk assessment procedures. To determine risk of material misstatement, you have to perform risk assessment procedures. Next, determining materiality. We are saying not risk of misstatement, risk of material misstatement. So auditor should first of all determine what is meant by materiality in order to identify risk of material misstatement. Then auditor should also consider whether there is a need of any expert. Okay, all these activities auditor will perform before determining the risk of material misstatement. Okay, these are just some of the examples. See, the analytical procedures to be applied as risk assessment procedures. What are analytical procedures? We will discuss. Okay, in SA 520 we will discuss. But here you just remember that this planning phase includes determining which analytical procedures has to be performed for the purpose of determining risk of material misstatement. Okay, analytical procedure is one type of risk assessment procedure. Next, however, analytical procedure can also be used as a further audit procedure. That is the beauty of analytical procedure. Okay, analytical procedure can be used as both RAP and FAP. We'll see that how analytical procedure can be used as both RAP and FAP. Okay, next, obtaining a general understanding of legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity and how the entity is complying with that framework. Okay, planning also includes how the auditor should obtain understanding of the legal framework that is applicable to the entity. Legal framework means, for example, bank. For doing audit of a bank, what laws are applicable, what is the environment of a bank. Okay, the business environment of a bank will be different from the business environment of a normal manufacturing company or a trading company, right? So auditor should obtain understanding of legal and regulatory framework that is applicable to the entity that he is auditing, and he should also make him familiar with the environment in which that entity is operating, the business environment in which that entity is operating, right? Based on that only auditor will design his procedures. Okay, the audit procedures that you will perform in case of a banking industry will be different from the audit procedures that you will perform in a insurance industry. Okay, so this needs to be considered, the legal and regulatory framework and also the business environment in which the entity is operating. This needs to be considered by the auditor for the purpose in case of this planning, in determining the planning or preparing the planning. Okay. Next, determination of materiality. Okay, auditor will determine materiality as per SA 320. Okay, so how much is the materiality for a particular entity? Materiality changes from company to company based on their business, based on their transactions. The materiality changes. So for each and every audit, auditor has to determine materiality separately. Okay, and for determining materiality, what aspects, like whether I have to calculate materiality on revenue or gross profit, that needs to be decided by the auditor in the planning phase itself. How much percentage I have to apply? Basically, for calculating materiality you will require benchmark and a percentage, we will see that. So which benchmark I have to take, how much percentage I have to take, all that decision will be taken by the auditor in the planning phase. Okay, next, involvement of experts, whether there is any need to involve experts in the audit of this particular entity, that also will be considered by the auditor in the planning phase. Performance of other risk assessment procedures. Okay, so these are just examples of points that will be considered by the auditor in planning phase. Apart from this, there will be various other areas that the auditor will consider. Shall I move to next slide, Dikshit? Yeah. Next, nature and extent of planning. Now, what is meant by nature? Nature refers to qualitative aspect, like what should be included in the scope of audit, what is objective of audit. All these aspects will determine nature of planning. Okay, nature is a qualitative aspect, like scope, objective, risk assessment, understanding entity. All these you cannot quantify. Okay, these are qualitative terms. So nature includes these aspects. Next, extent. Extent is a quantitative aspect, like in how much detail you have to do the audit, and within which time you have to complete the audit. So if you see here, we are speaking in quantitative terms, like how much detail, in how much time. So extent is quantitative aspect of the planning. Extent covers aspects like level of detail, timelines, resource allocation. That means for doing this audit, how many people should be included in the engagement team. Again, a quantity, 3 members or 4 members, right? So the quantitative aspect of planning will be referred as extent of planning. Qualitative aspect of planning will be referred as nature of planning. Got it? Nature covers qualitative aspects of the planning. Extent covers quantitative aspects of the planning. Now tell me whether nature and extent of planning will be same for all the entities. It will differ. So on what factors the nature and extent of planning will differ? First one, size and complexity of the audit. Okay, if the auditee means audited, is known as auditee. So if the client's business is huge, then the nature and extent of planning that you will perform will be more detailed. You will allocate more resources, you will take more time. If the size of the entity is less, the extent of planning will be shorter, like you will require less time, less resources. The scope will also be less, right? The nature and extent will also reduce based on size and complexity of the entity. Complexity means the complexness of the transactions that the entity is entering into. Got it? Next, another factor based on which the planning varies is past experience and expertise. That means if auditor has conducted the audit of the entity in the past year, he has developed a particular plan. Now let's say, for example, in the previous year he observed that in the area of debtors, or in the area of, let's say, investments, the misstatements are more in the previous year. So based on his previous experience of the previous year, in the current year, obviously he will he will allocate more time for auditing that investments, because based on his experience in the past year, there are more misstatements in the investments, right? So in the current year he will focus more, he will allocate more time, more resources on the auditing of investments. So past experience and expertise will also impact the nature and extent of planning. Okay, did you understand this image, or are you feeling why randomly I kept that image? Do you seen Dune movie? There basically, in order to learn how to ride that thing, you need experience, right? Based on the past experience, he will fail lot of times and then he will learn, right? So based on your past experiences, uh-huh. Past experience, no, learning how to ride that animal, 1 to 2 times he will fail, right? Based on that experience, third time or fourth time he will ride it properly, right? So basically, based on the experience, you will change your way of doing the audit or tactics, right? The plan will change. Next, change in circumstances. Now if circumstances of audit change, the circumstances that were present in the previous year are different from the circumstances that are present in the current year, then obviously you will change your planning that is suitable to the current year, right, based on the changed circumstances. So these are the three items that will impact your nature and planning of audit. Got it? Yeah. Next, elements of planning process. There are two elements in the planning process. First one is preliminary engagement activities. Now, if you see in SA 210, we have discussed preconditions. Mostly, there is a chance that you will confuse between these preconditions and preliminary engagement activities. You should remember that both of these are not same. Okay, preconditions means conditions that has to be present for accepting the audit. Preliminary engagement activities you will perform before starting the audit. Got it? There is a difference between these two things. The preliminary engagement activities forms part of planning phase. Okay. See, next one is planning activities. The name of the chapter: overall audit strategy, audit plan, and audit program, right? These three are part of planning activities. Okay, planning activities include audit strategy, audit plan, and audit program. Okay, these three includes in planning activities. And there are also preliminary engagement activities. These both together we call it as entire planning phase. Okay, if you see here, we will be using the term plan lot of times. You should understand, planning phase means the broad planning phase. In the planning phase there will be preliminary engagement activities and planning activities again. Okay, in the planning phase there will be planning activities. In the planning activities there will be audit strategy, audit planning, audit program. Okay, if you see here, plan is repeating three times. You should not confuse. Okay, you should understand the meaning of the plan based on the scenario in which it is being used. Okay, now preliminary engagement activities. So the first preliminary engagement activity is client acceptance and continuance procedures. What are these client acceptance and continuance procedures? We will see in the next slide. Here I will just give you a brief idea of these elements of planning process. Okay, after that I'll explain you each element separately in the coming slides. Got it? Next activity is evaluating compliance with ethical requirements. And the final activity is understanding terms of engagement. These three are part of preliminary engagement activities. And obviously planning activities include the three things which I have already discussed, which is audit strategy, audit plan, and audit program. Okay, you can write down this chart. After that I'll explain you each of the element. Done. Now, so what are the two elements of planning process and planning activities? Preliminary engagement activities include client acceptance and continuance procedure, evaluating compliance with ethical requirements, and understanding terms of engagement. Next, planning activities. What are the three things that will be included in planning activities? Audit strategy, audit plan, audit program. Right. Now we'll start with preliminary engagement activities. The first one is client acceptance and continuance procedure. Now tell me what is meant by client acceptance and continuance procedure. Just by reading that line, you can understand that in order to accept a new client or to continue the existing client, what procedure you will perform, okay, to decide, to take a decision. If let's say a new client has come to you, now whether to accept that client or not to accept that client, in making that decision, how you will decide? Or there is already a existing client. Now in the previous year you have conducted the audit of that existing client. Now in the current year also that existing client asked you only to do the audit. So whether to continue that existing client or not, how you will make that decision? Or the existing client offered you a new engagement, that means in the previous year you have done statutory audit as per companies act for that existing client. Now in the current year that existing client offered you, apart from statutory audit, he asks you to do tax audit also. That means new engagement from existing client. To accept this new engagement from existing client, how you will make a decision? So in total there are three situations involved here. The first situation, see, firm should obtain certain information before the first situation. What is the first situation? Accepting engagement with new client. Second situation, continue an existing engagement with the existing client. Third situation, acceptance of new engagement with an existing client. Okay, so in these three situations, how you will make a decision, what points you should consider for deciding this? Let us see. That points that you will consider are known as client acceptance and continuance procedures. Okay, so what information has to be obtained from the client? First one is integrity of principal owners and key management. What is meant by integrity? So you have to check whether the owners of the client are involved in any fraudulent activities. Are they truthful? Or in the past, are there any criminal cases against them? So all these you will see before accepting a- an engagement from the new client. Okay, so that is known as the integrity of principal owners and key management. Key management means the top level management, like managing director, CEO, CFO, all those people will come under key management. So you will check integrity of those people before accepting the engagement from the new client. Next, competence of engagement team. What is meant by competence? We have already discussed this point. Capability. Competence means capability. See, before accepting the client, you have checked whether he is having integrity or not. You should also check whether your team is capable to do that work or not, right? You accepted the work, but if your team is not capable to do that work, what is the use of accepting that work? You will not be able to discharge qualitative service to the client. So the client acceptance and continuance procedure also includes evaluating the competence of your team, okay, whether your team is capable enough to discharge that work or not. Got it? Next, finally, implications of matters arisen during current and previous audit engagement. Now, let's say in the previous year you have done audit of a particular client. Now, in the previous year, that client has not provided you the required information. You have asked the client a lot of times to provide some evidences, but he has delayed in providing those information, or he has not provided the information in the previous audit. Now in the current year, the same client has came to you and asking you to do the audit. Now before accepting this engagement or before continuing the relationship with that client, you will see in the previous year this guy, he has not given me the proper information. Now it is obvious that this year also he will not give you. So you will consider this point also before continuing the relationship with the client. Okay, that is the implications of matters arisen during the current and previous audit engagements. Got it? Any doubt? Yes. So these are the client acceptance and continuance procedure. So if you see, do you remember the basic chart that we have discussed in the previous slide? The first thing, next, under this we have completed client acceptance and continuance procedure, right? Moving to the another thing, which is communication with the predecessor auditor. Another point that you have to consider here is, if let's say for example in the previous year this audit was done by some other auditor, then you will call him as a predecessor auditor. Let's say for example in the previous class I have told you, right, the financial year 23-24 audited by Mr. X, the audit of current year being audited by Mr. Y. Now for Mr. Y, current year audit is initial audit engagement, and for Mr. Y, Mr. X is predecessor auditor. Okay, so in case if the current audit you are doing is a initial audit engagement and previous audit was done by predecessor auditor, it is mandatory for you to communicate with the predecessor auditor. Okay, what you will communicate? You will ask why you have been removed as a auditor. Previously you have done the audit of this company, na? In the current year why they are giving this engagement to me? Have you reported any misstatements and they are not okay with such reporting? If yes, what are those reportings that you have made? Please forward me. So like this you will communicate with the predecessor auditor. Okay, so based on communication with the predecessor auditor, if you feel that you should not accept this engagement, you will not accept the engagement. Okay, in fact the institute has kept a rule that if audit fees for the predecessor auditor is not given by the client, if there is a dispute or if there is a undisputed audit fee that is not given to the predecessor auditor, then no one should accept the audit of that client. Okay, the new auditor should not accept the audit of that client. Okay, so to know whether fee has been paid or not, you have to communicate with the predecessor auditor, right? So communication with predecessor audit. Next, evaluate compliance with ethical requirements including independence. What are the ethical requirements? auditor has to follow? 5 fundamental principles are known as ethical requirements: confidentiality, professional behavior. Right now, in the preliminary engagement activity, you should also consider, if you accept this engagement, will I be able to comply with all these fundamental principles? Will I be able to comply with the ethical requirements? Okay, or should I have to compromise on my ethical requirements if I accept these audit? Okay, that also you should consider. If you feel that if you accept this audit, you have to compromise with your ethical requirements, that means you have to compromise on your integrity, or you have to compromise on your objectivity. If you accept the engagement, then obviously you will not accept the engagement, right? So, auditor shall continuously evaluate compliance with ethical requirements, including independence. Not only just while accepting the engagement, even after the engagement has been accepted, while doing the audit also, auditor has to continuously evaluate whether I am acting independently, whether I am complying with the ethical requirements. This needs to be continuously evaluated by the auditor. Throughout the audit, he should evaluate. Got it? Next, throughout the audit engagement, the EP means engagement partner, shall remain alert for evidence of non-compliance with ethics. Now, who is this engagement partner? Auditor. See, basically a CA firm might have many partners, right? Now, each partner will be given responsibility with respect to audit of certain clients. Now, let's say Mr. A, chartered accountant, is auditing audit of Z Limited. Responsibility with respect to Z Limited is given to Mr. A. So, for Z Limited, Mr. A becomes engagement partner. Now, it becomes responsibility of the engagement partner to ensure that the engagement team and engagement partner complies with ethical requirements and independence. So, for this purpose, throughout the audit, he has to be alert to see whether any situations arises where we might compromise on the ethical requirements. Okay, so on whom there is a responsibility to check compliance with ethical requirements? Auditor, or you can call as engagement partner. Okay, next, engagement partner shall form a conclusion on compliance with independence. See, not only the ethical requirements, even the independence should also be checked throughout the year. Okay, throughout the audit, auditor has to remain alert whether there are any threats being created for my independence. We have seen threats: self-review threat, self-interest threat, intimidation threat. So, auditor, throughout the audit, he should be alert to find, or is there any threat to my independence. Okay, so in doing so, what the auditor will do? Okay, what activities the auditor will do to ensure that he and his team is independent throughout the audit? He will identify and evaluate circumstances and relationships that create threat to independence. Okay, so what are the circumstances that are present that might create threat to my independence? He will identify those circumstances and he will evaluate. That means evaluation includes taking decision whether it is at acceptable level, whether that threat is at acceptable level, or if it is not at acceptable level, whether I should implement safeguards or I should eliminate that threat. Okay, that process of identifying, implementing safeguards and elimination of the threats is known as evaluation of the threats. Okay, so auditor will identify and evaluate circumstances and relationships that create threat to the independence. Next, evaluate information on identified breaches. Now, auditor will see whether there are actual identified breaches. That means, let's say for example, one of the engagement team member has purchased shares in the auditee, that is client. Now this is the actual breach. So auditor will see whether there are such instances of actual breaches or identified breaches, so as to determine whether they create a threat to independence. Now in this situation, the identified breach will create a threat to independence. Which type of threat it will create? The engagement team member invested in shares of the client. This will create self interest threat. So yes, the identified breach is creating a threat, right? Auditor will evaluate this, whether identified breaches will create a threat, and finally take appropriate action to eliminate such threats or reduce them to an acceptable level. So this is the second aspect, which is evaluation with evaluate compliance with ethical requirements, including independence. So we have completed the preliminary engagement activities, right? What are the three preliminary engagement activities? Client acceptance and continuance procedure, evaluation of ethical requirements, and finally understanding, common understanding. How you will obtain common understanding? Engagement letter, right? By sending engagement letter. That is the third aspect of preliminary engagement activity. So the first part of engagement planning process is done. Now moving to the second part. So if we complete discussion of this second part, the chapter gets completed. Okay, but don't worry, it will take 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours to complete that second part discussion. Max will try today. So planning activities, this is important actually. Okay, this planning activity discussion is important. Now first of all, we should understand what is the difference between audit strategy, audit plan, audit program. Audit strategy is broad, okay, or you can say audit strategy will just communicate a brief picture, a brief direction will be given to the audit, whereas plan will be more detailed when compared to the strategy. Okay, now another point, Which one will be prepared first? Here there are three things now: audit strategy, audit plan, audit program. Which one will be prepared first? Strategy will be prepared first. Based on strategy, plan will be prepared. Based on plan, based on plan and strategy, program will be prepared. Okay. Now, the strategy, it is not that much detail. Okay, it will just give you a brief idea or brief picture, whereas plan is very much detail, program is also very much detail. Okay, we will see one by one. So, planning activities. The planning activities, first one includes establishment of overall audit strategy. You will establish overall audit strategy. After that, based on strategy, you will develop audit plan. Now, strategy will focuses on what has to be done, when it has to be done. Okay, in the audit, what you have to do and when you have to do. These two aspects will be focused by strategy, whereas planning focuses on how you have to do. Okay, the actual procedure of how you have to do will be dealt in plan. Focuses on how of an audit. Okay, so while preparing the strategy, your focus should be what and when. Okay, what I have to audit and when I have to audit, and how I have to audit, you will focus it on in while preparing the plan. Okay, now, as I have already told you, strategy is prepared first, and based on strategy, plan will be prepared. Okay, based on strategy, plan is developed. So one of the normal example for the strategy and plan, let's say, for example, company. Just a second. Okay, so the company wants to increase its sales. So in order to increase its sales, what it has to do will be covered in strategy. Okay, in our example, for increasing the sales, the various options that are available to the company is, it can increase marketing expenditure for the existing product, or it can increase price of the existing product, right? Or it can launch new product also. Okay, if new product is launched, obviously sales will increase, revenue will increase. So now, what has to be done for increasing the sales will be covered in planning, sorry, strategy. So let's say company has decided to launch new product for increasing the sales. So company has prepared a strategy that let us launch a new product. Now, okay, we have decided to launch a new product. In order to launch the new product, how you have to launch the new product? You have to first of all develop a new product, right? For developing the new product, you should do research and development, right? So that aspect of how will be covered in plan. Okay, in order to achieve this strategy, invest in research and development, production facilities, etc. Got it? So that is the difference between strategy and plan. You can note down. Any doubt? Now, who is responsible for preparing audit strategy, audit plan, audit program? Auditor, right? So it is the responsibility of auditor along with the engagement team to prepare audit strategy, audit plan, and audit program. Now, once auditor prepares this strategy and plan, whether he can discuss this plan and program with the management, can he discuss? He can discuss, because management has to facilitate the auditor for doing the audit. Okay, he has to communicate with the management the timelines of when he will audit what. Okay, so he can disclose the plan and strategy with the management, but care has to be taken that you will not give complete details of the plan and strategy to the management. Okay, if you give complete details of we are having doubt that in this area there is a fraud, this area we will verify in depth, like this, if you communicate each and every aspect of the plan and the strategy to the management, what the management will do? They will try to cover up their frauds, cover up their misstatements. So you can discuss your plan and strategy with the management, but care should be taken that you should not give complete information to them. Okay, so you have to apply your professional judgment in deciding which can be communicated to the management and which should not be communicated to the management. Got it? See, auditor may discuss elements of planning with entities management, but however, while discussing with the management, care has to be taken. But care has to be taken not to compromise on effectiveness of audit. Effectiveness of audit means achieving the objective. Okay, you can discuss with the management about your plan, but if such discussion compromises on your achieving of objective, you should not discuss those aspects with the management. Remaining aspects you can discuss. Okay, so those aspects that affects effectiveness of the audit should not be communicated to the management. Got it? You should take care that you should not disclose it. If let's say unethically, if entity knows about the plan and auditor has knowledge that entity is knowing about my plan, then you have to change your plan. Let's say you have secretly planned to visit the location of inventory on so and so date, and entity by whatever means got information that you are going to visit on so and so to the location. You have to change that date. You, if it is not known to you that entity is having knowledge of the audit plan, then you can do nothing, because you itself don't know that yeah, that's not the problem for the auditor. Okay, you can say that is a limitation, because you, if you know, you can take any action. If you only don't know that entity is having access to my plan, what can you do, right? Done. Next, relationship between audit strategy and audit plan. Is there any relationship between audit strategy and audit plan? Because based on strategy only, plan will be prepared. If you change the strategy, plan also changes, right? If you change the plan, strategy should also be changed, right? See, relationship between audit strategy and audit plan. Audit strategy is prepared before the audit plan, right? Strategy is prepared first, plan is prepared next. Audit plan and audit strategy are interrelated. Okay, they are linked to each other. That is the reason why, if audit plan is more detailed than strategy, okay, when compared to strategy, plan is more detailed, right? Strategy will be just a brief idea, whereas plan will be more detailed. I'll also show you example of the strategy document and the plan document and the program document. I'll show you, then you'll understand uh, how brief, how detailed the plan is, and how limited the strategy is. Next, audit strategy provides guidelines to develop audit plan, right? Here you can also include another point. What point you can include here? If audit strategy changes, plan also changes, or vis-a-vis, that point also you can include here. Hmm. Yes, on paper or the Excel or Word, something like, but it should be in written format. Documentation is must. Hmm. Hmm. Like you're asking practically, right? While doing the audit, whether we should prepare the plan on paper. Yes, in fact, for each engagement team member, you will give audit program. As per that audit program, he will do the audit. Hmm. Done. Next, benefits of overall audit strategy. Now we are starting with the first part of planning activity, which is overall audit strategy. Okay, first we'll discuss about overall audit strategy, then we will discuss about audit plan. Okay, just now we have seen the relationship between plan and strategy, and what will be covered in plan and what will be covered in strategy we have seen. Now we'll discuss in detail about benefits of strategy and further things with respect to strategy. Now, benefits of overall audit strategy. Okay, before discussing the benefits, we'll once see this audit strategy example document of audit strategy. We'll see, after that we'll see the benefits. So if you see, this is the illustrative format of audit strategy. Firstly, in the audit strategy, objectives. So what is the objective of this audit that we are going to do? That is included in the audit strategy. Next, our responsibilities. So as a auditor, what is our responsibility? Next, what is the approach of our audit? Generally, the approach of audit will be risk based approach. That means, first of all, auditor will identify the risk of each and every area, and he will focus more on those areas where the risk is high. So we'll call audit, generally the audit that we do is a risk based approach. The approach that we follow for doing the audit is risk based approach. Okay, so overall approach for the auditor. So apart from risk based approach, if you are following any other approach, like let's say you are following detailed approach, that means irrespective of the irrespective of the risk, each and every area you are verifying detailedly, then you will call it as detailed approach. So what is your approach for the audit of this particular entity? You will mention in the overall audit approach. Okay, this will be there in the strategy. So based on this approach, if it is risk based approach, then in the plan that you will prepare, there will be procedures with respect to identification of risk. After identification of risk, procedures will be designed in response to the risk, right? So here the procedures that you will write in the plan are dependent based on the approach that is decided in the strategy. If let's say in the audits, overall audit strategy, the approach that you have decided is a detailed approach. Then in the audit planning, there will not be any risk assessment procedures, right? You will go for all the procedures you want to perform for each and every area. So that is the reason why we told strategy and plan are interrelated. Got it? So here you will clearly mention, and discussion with management. Okay, during your discussion with the management, if you found any important areas that has to be audited, management might communicate with you that these areas we wanted to, we wanted you to focus more like this, or if any other information you have gathered during the management discussion that you feel has impact in developing the audit strategy, you will also include that discussion in the audit strategy. Okay, and working with the internal auditor, that means before the statutory auditor comes and start his audit, internal auditor would have already completed his audit, right? So how to utilize the work of internal auditor, which by seeing the internal audit report, you will get an idea of which areas the internal auditor has audited. So based on that, you will determine which areas I should focus and which areas the internal auditor has already focused. Okay, focusing on the areas that internal auditor has already focused is waste of time, right? By that is what we will be discussing in SA-610, wherein if you want to use the work of internal auditor, how you have to use it. Okay, so with respect to use of internal auditor, we will have some discussion in the strategy, or some points in the strategy. Next, use of specialist. Specialist means expert with respect to taxation, information security. Use of service organization. This concept of service organization is in SA 402, but you don't have it in your syllabus. Next, materiality. So how much materiality you have determined, that will also you will include in the audit strategy. Now this materiality, it will be there in the audit strategy and in the plan also. Why? Because materiality for the entire organization will be determined, and also materiality for each item can also be determined. Okay, if at all auditor wants, or auditor feels that materiality that is applicable to the entire organization cannot be applied for a specific item, a higher materiality has to be determined for a specific item, then he will calculate other materiality for the specific item. So this is the reason why materiality can be there in strategy as well also in plan. Okay, next, key risks. What are the key risky areas in the entity? These key risk areas, will they be common for all the organizations, or will they change? Will they change? They will change, right? But however, the standards on auditing has prescribed that there are certain areas. These areas, they are always key risk areas. One such example is the revenue recognition. Okay, revenue recognition is key risk area, significant area in any type of organization. So auditor in his audit procedures, he should focus more on revenue recognition area, because that area will contain high risk. Okay, next, fraud risk consideration, independence. See, timelines, audit timelines, that is, if you observe this entire audit strategy, by reading the audit strategy, you will get answers to the questions of what and when, right? By reading the audit strategy, you will get an idea of what the auditor is going to audit, and when the auditor is going to do each particular activity. The timelines. Okay, and who is there in the audit team, right? Their names and their position. Okay, quality reviewer, engagement manager, engagement senior, and audit fee. If you want, you can also include audit fee in the audit strategy. Terms and conditions of the engagement. Terms and conditions of the engagement, you would have already included included it in engagement letter. Okay, from there the important terms you can copy paste into the audit strategy. If you feel any term is having impact on the audit that we are doing, then you can include it in the audit strategy also. Got it? So this is not the format of audit strategy, but just an example of what could be included in the audit strategy. Okay, it can vary. These are not the fixed uh, points that must be included. Okay, they vary from organization to organization. Okay, so now let's see the benefits of overall audit strategy. The first benefit is employment of qualitative resources, right? So here, for the purpose of audit, resources means, yeah, the team is a resource. So the people who are having respective knowledge with respect to those areas can be included in the team. So audit strategy will help to hire or to employ qualitative resources. Next, the audit strategy will also help for allocation of quantity of resources. Quantity of resources means, again, for each area, how many staff or how many people should be allotted for auditing that area, right? So strategy will also help you for allocation of resources. Next, timing of deployment of resources. Okay, at what time, at when each person has to be deployed for auditing so and so area. In deciding this, the strategy will help you. And finally, management of resources. So strategy will help you for including qualitative resources, allocation of quantity of resources, and timing of deployment of resources, and finally managing those resources. Here resources means the staff, the team. Okay, now the auditor shall set the overall audit strategy that will set scope, timing, and direction of the audit. Now if you see in the example audit strategy document, the scope, that means what areas has to be covered and when that area has to be audited, and the direction of the audit. Direction of the audit means the approach that you are following, risk based or detailed. So that is direction of the audit. So auditor shall establish overall audit strategy that sets the scope, timing, direction. Clear with these three terms, right? Scope, timing, direction of an audit. Now, in setting this time, scope and direction, that is basically in preparing this overall audit strategy, auditor has to take into consideration certain 5 factors has to be considered by the auditor while developing audit strategy. What are those factors? We'll see now. Okay, factors while establishing audit strategy. So in order to develop audit strategy, first of all you should know the characteristics of the engagement. That is the first factor, which is characteristics of the engagement. See, what is meant by characteristics of engagement? See, characteristics of a person means his height, his weight, color, right? All these comes under characteristics of a person. Similarly, characteristics of a engagement means which financial reporting framework is being used for preparation of those financial statements. What are the reporting objectives? All these comes under characteristics of a engagement. Okay, so you have to consider, or you have to identify what are the characteristics of engagement for the purpose of developing strategy. Okay, see, the first factor that you will consider is determine characteristics of engagement. Examples of characteristics include financial reporting framework. Which financial reporting framework is used for preparation of those financial statements? Next, industry specific reporting requirements. Industry specific reporting requirements means for all the entities the reporting requirements will not be same. If you just take example of bank, in case of bank, apart from giving the normal audit report, you have to certify various other aspects. There will be a form known as LFAR, long form audit report, that has to be issued in case of bank audit. And you should also certify the interest subvention. That means generally for educational loans, agricultural loans, the government will give certain subsidy. So auditor has to certify how much subsidy has been given by respective branch, and whether such a subsidy has been actually applied to respective borrower. So this has to be certified by the auditor. Like this, the reporting requirements or the certification requirements of auditor changes from audit to audit. So you have to identify the characteristics. This also forms a part of characteristics of the engagement. Next, nature of business segments to be audited. That is, what businesses the entity is doing, that is also forms part of characteristics of the engagement, right? Next, expected use of audit evidence obtained in previous audits. These are some of the examples of characteristics of the engagement. Like this, there could be various characteristics an engagement can have. Okay, so based on these characteristics you will develop your audit strategy. I have told you now, audit strategy will differ from organization to organization. The reason why the audit strategy differs from organization to organization is the characteristics will differ, right? The characteristics of organization will differ from one organization to another organization. So the strategy also varies, obviously, because strategy is dependent on the characteristics, right? Next factor, reporting objectives to plan timing of audit and nature of communication. If you see, the reporting objective we have already discussed in the characteristic. This is also one type of characteristic. Okay, reporting, that means what type of reports that you have to issue, and what should be the timing of that reporting. Based on that also you will change the strategy. Your strategy will change based on the timing of reports also. Example, entities timetable for reporting. Now, what is this entities timetable for reporting? Yeah, authorities. Yeah. So after the company prepares financial statements and after the auditor audits those financial statements, company has to file audited financial statements with MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, company will be registered with MCA. So there will be certain time limit. Generally by October 30 you have to file these things with the MCA. And if in case the company is a listed entity, it has to file before 31st May to the stock exchange the audited financial statements. So this is known as the reporting timetable of the entity. The reporting timetable of the entity changes from entity to entity, right? So the audit strategy also changes from entity to entity. Next, type and timings of report to be issued. Types of reports means, in case of bank, the main audit report, next LFAR, Caro report, right? So these are known as different types of reports. And nature and timing of communication with engagement team. Okay, now engagement team, they will communicate among themselves on a periodical basis, because one team member will be auditing a particular area, another team member might be auditing another area, right? So on a periodical basis they will exchange the knowledge, or they will exchange their findings that they have found in the other areas, because audit is a holistic. Okay, audit has to be seen in a holistic perspective. It is not that only one area of the entity. Okay, each item will have effect on the other items, right? So it is very much important for the engagement team to discuss among themselves about their findings on a periodic basis, right? So what is the timetable for these engagement team discussions? That also varies based on type of the audit. Okay, next factor, teams efforts. Now, where will the effort of team members will be high? Where will the effort of team member will be high? Where romum is high. Okay, where risk of material misstatement is high, in that area high efforts are required for auditing that area, right? So the area in which romum is high, it differs from entity to entity. Like in case of banking entities, the romum will be high in case of loans given, advances. Okay, because the basic nature of banking business is to give loan, right? So the romum in case of banks will be high in loans, advances, whereas the romum in case of trading entities or manufacturing entities will be high in closing stock. There is a possibility that they might manipulate closing stock in order to achieve more profit. Okay, so this area where the romum is high differs from entity to entity. So based on that the team's efforts will change. Okay, the efforts of the team has to be directed to the area where the risk is high. Got it? See, consider factors that are significant in direction of the team's efforts. And example, significant industry developments, change in financial reporting framework. Let's say in the current year, a new IND-AS has been launched, or the existing IND-AS on investments or on inventory has been changed, a new rule has been prescribed. Now let's say, as per that new Ind AS, valuing the inventory is very much typical. A complex formula might be issued. Now since it is issued in this year only, it is new to the entity, so there is a chance that entity might commit mistake in valuing the inventory, because the Ind AS has been newly issued in the current year only, so the risk will be high in this area. That is one of the example. Okay, if there is a change in the financial reporting framework, then team's efforts should be more towards that area where there is a change. Okay, next, consider results of preliminary engagement activities. Now preliminary engagement activities, what are preliminary engagement activities? The three preliminary engagement activities: client acceptance, compliance procedure, compliance with ethical requirements, evaluating compliance with ethical requirements. Third one, terms of engagement, understanding the terms of engagement, right? So now while performing these three preliminary engagement activities, you would have got certain information, right? So based on your understanding that you have obtained while performing these three preliminary activities, you will design your audit strategy. If let's say you found that the integrity of management is losing their integrity in the past, they have committed certain frauds or there are criminal activities against the management, in such a situation what you will do? In case of preparing the audit strategy, you will prepare audit strategy in such a way that more verification of management activities will be done by you. Okay, whatever the transactions where management is involved, you will try to focus more on those areas. So that also you need to consider the preliminary engagement activities, results of preliminary engagement activities you should consider while developing the overall audit strategy. Example, knowledge gained in other engagements performed. Okay, while performing other engagements you would have obtained certain knowledge. That knowledge you have to use for preparing audit strategy in the current situation. Next, results of previous audits that involved evaluating internal controls, manner in which auditor emphasizes to engagement team the need to maintain questioning mind. Questioning mind means skepticism, and to exercise professional skepticism, right? So this will also impact your audit strategy. Shall I move next slide? Next, the final one, nature, timing, extent of resources necessary to perform the engagement. Nature means which type of people. Timing means when those people has to be allocated to the work, and extent means how many people. Okay, so nature, timing, extent of resources that are necessary to perform the engagement should also be considered while determining overall audit strategy. Example: engagement, team selection, budget, etc. Done. So these are the 5 factors that you should consider for developing strategy. First one is characteristics of audit. Next, reporting objectives. Next, team efforts. Next, preliminary engagement activities. Finally, NTE, timing, extent of resources. So that was about overall audit strategy. Now we'll move to audit plan. So we have developed audit strategy. With the help of this audit strategy, we should develop plan. Now in the audit strategy, you got a brief idea of in which area the risks are there and what will be your audit approach, right? So based on this, you will develop the risk assessment procedures and the further audit procedures, right? See, as I've already told you, risk based audit means, high risk, you will focus on that area more. To identify in which area there is a high risk, what procedures you will perform? To identify which area is having high risk, you will perform risk assessment procedures. So by performing risk assessment procedures, you identified risk. Based on the risk of the item, you will design further audit procedures. By performing further audit procedures, you will obtain audit evidence, actual misstatements or the audit evidence you will obtain. Based on your audit evidence, you will give your opinion. Okay, this is how the process works. Now this process will be there in the audit plan. Okay, in the audit plan, you will design the risk assessment procedures, further audit procedures, and other audit procedures. So the contents of audit plan will be these audit procedures. Okay, see, contents of audit plan. Audit plan is record of RAP and FAP. RAP means risk assessment procedure. FAP means further audit procedures. Okay. Now, what will be included in the risk assessment procedures? There are various types of risk assessment procedures, where there are various types of further audit procedures. Those aspects we will discuss in further chapter. In SA 315, we will discuss that types of RAP and types of FAP. Okay, but here you just remember that audit plan contains these 3 things. Okay, firstly, nature, timing, extent of planned risk assessment procedures. You will plan risk assessment procedures as per a specific standard, which is SA 315. Okay, next, in the first class also I have told you the interlinking between SA 315, SA 330 and SA 450, right? So after identifying the risk of material misstatement by performing a risk assessment procedure as per SA 315, you will design further audit procedures, nature, timing, extent of further audit procedures as per SA 330, and next other planned audit procedures to be carried out so that engagement complies with standards on auditing. You can note down. Full form of standards on auditing. Done. So audit plan consists of risk assessment procedure, further assessment procedure, and other audit procedures. Okay. We'll once see how audit plan will look like. So the illustrative format of audit plan: identification and assessment of key risk of material misstatement. That means for identifying, you will perform RAB, right? So this audit plan is for which area, like inventory or fixed asset? What is the area for which this audit plan is prepared, and what is the amount of that particular item in the trial balance? Next, components of that amount. Okay, what are included in that amount? So yeah, and what is the amount of it in the trial balance and the components of that amount. And next, understanding of process based on inquiry with management. Basically, inquiry means asking questions asking for information is known as inquiry. Inquiry is also one of the audit procedure that the auditor will perform. Okay, inquiry is one of the risk assessment procedure that the auditor will perform. Okay, inquiry is example for risk assessment procedure. Okay, by inquiring with employees in the organization, by inquiring with the management, auditor will understand how much risk is there in that area. Okay, by asking various questions to the management, to the employees and to other people, he will get to an understanding of how much risky that area or that item is. So basically here he is performing risk assessment procedure. Okay, so this is included in the audit plan. Next, results of preliminary analytics, any unusual or unexpected relationships. This is also one of the procedure. Results of design effectiveness of internal controls, that is how the controls are working. This is known as a control testing, that is performing certain procedures on the controls to verify whether the internal controls are working properly or not, whether they are effective or not. Okay, so if you see, the entire plan consists of a list of procedures. Okay, results of observation and inspection. So observation and inspection is also one of the audit procedure. Okay, observation means you will observe what the, let's say for example, in case of inventory verification, the management, the staff of the management will count the inventory. Auditor will observe the procedure of inventory counting that the management is doing. That is known as observation. Observation is also one of the procedure that the auditor will perform as a audit procedure. Okay, next, inspection. Inspection means auditor himself will inspect whether there are boxes, in those boxes whether actually the items are there or not. That is known as inspection. Okay, this is also one of the audit procedure. Next, other information. So by performing all those risk assessment procedure, what risks you have identified, you will list down the risks that you have identified in the plan. Next, planned procedures to be completed prior to performance of audit procedures based on aforesaid information. Testing operating effectiveness of controls. Here you are testing the controls. Okay, so this is just an example of how plan will look like. Plan is here the procedure is listed, right? So after performing the procedure, you have to note down. If you found out any remarks, you have to note down. Okay, even the program also looks similar. Okay, program, the audit program also consists of the audit procedures only, but audit program will be more specific. Like there are three staff in the audit engagement team, three people in the audit engagement team. Now for all these three people, you will give audit strategy and audit plan. Okay, it will be commonly given to all these three people. Audit program is there na, that will be specifically given. Let's say article student 1 is assigned with the task of verifying fixed assets. So audit program related to fixed asset will be given to that particular, article assistant who is assigned with the task of verifying so and so item. Okay, so audit program will be specific for the person who is going to verify that area. Understood? So that is the difference between strategy, plan and program. Okay, So contents of audit plan, we have already discussed this, right? Next, can audit plan and strategy changed during the audit? Can it be changed? Yes, you can change it during the audit. Auditor can change audit strategy plan as necessary during the audit. Some of the situations leading to modification of plan or strategy, in which situations the change can be made. Some of the examples: result of unexpected events. Okay, while preparing the plan and while preparing the strategy, you don't know that the entity has entered into related party transactions. So you haven't planned for any procedures with respect to related party transactions, but while doing the audit you found out that entity has entered into related party transactions. Now related party transactions, the risk is high in the related party transactions, right? So you have to specifically design audit procedures as per SA 550 if related party transactions are there. So obviously to include those procedures you have to change the plan and the strategy. That is a result of unexpected events. Next, change in the conditions or change in audit evidence obtained. If at all there is a change in the conditions that are present, then also we will change the plan. And change in law, notification, government policy. Let's say suddenly law has requested you to provide audit evidence or to provide additional reporting. Then for the purpose of providing additional reporting as requested by law, you need to perform those procedures that are required for the additional report. And if you want to perform those procedures, you have to include them in the plan. So for including them in the plan, you have to change the plan. Okay, so these are some of the example situations where plan can be changed, plan or strategy can be changed. ఇది అనుకుంటా. Okay. What happened? uh, and this point you already know, if there is a change in the strategy, plan will also change, and if there is a change in plan, strategy will also change. Next, documentation. So earlier you asked me question whether you need to write the plan and strategy on the paper. So the standard specifically says that you need to maintain documentation of overall audit strategy, audit plan, and the significant changes that have been made to the plan and the strategy. Okay, you have to document the plan, strategy, and the changes that you have made to these plan and the strategy. Okay, so what are the benefits of documenting these things? It will act as record of key decisions considered to plan the audit. Okay, for the purpose of planning the audit, what aspects you have considered. Okay, if you document them, it will act as record of decisions that you have considered. Next, record of nature, timing, extent of risk assessment procedure and further assessment procedure. That means documenting will help you to remember and to have a record of when, how the further audit procedures and the risk assessment procedures were planned to be performed. Documentation will help you to achieve this, will help you to have a record of these things and record of reasons for changes in the strategy and plan. As we have discussed, strategy and plan, they can be changed, but at that particular situation, why the plan has been changed, why the strategy has been changed, okay, you can record the reasons that caused you to change the plan and strategy if you maintain the documentation. Okay, nt means nature, timing, extent. Nature means, you know, right, nature, timing, extent, all these three we have discussed. Done. Next, review of work of engagement team members. As I've already told you, most of the work in the audit will be done by engagement team. Now, the work that the engagement team has done will be reviewed by auditor, right? So the auditor, he shall plan the nature, timing and extent of direction and supervision of engagement team members. Okay, how he has to direct and supervise the engagement team members, how much hand holding is required for the engagement team members for doing the audit, that has to be decided or that has to be planned by the auditor for the purpose of reviewing their work. It vary depending on many factors. Okay, how much review has to be done depends on various factors like the knowledge of the person who has done the audit. Okay, if the person who has, that is the article student who has done the audit, is more knowledgeable, then obviously the auditor need not review his work that much. Okay, just normal review is sufficient. If the article student who has done the audit is junior, then more review by the auditor is required, right? So there are various factors that will impact the amount of review that the auditor has to done. Firstly, size and complexity of the entity, area of the audit, assessed risk of material misstatement, and capabilities and competence of the individual team member performing the audit work. Okay, size and complexity, you know, area of audit, you know, assessed risk of material misstatement, you know. Okay, this is a new point that will impact the amount of review that the auditor has to do. So till now we have discussed two things: audit strategy, audit plan we have discussed. Still audit program is pending. Okay, audit program will discuss straight away from the book. Okay. So before discussing that audit program, we'll just go through the concepts that we have seen till now from the book. Okay. So yeah, chapter number 3, which is audit strategy, planning and program. So here we'll be covering the standard SA 300, planning and audit of financial statements. The three stages of an audit are planning, execution and reporting. Now, why you have to plan the audit? For the purpose of doing effective audit in an efficient and timely manner. And what are the benefits or advantages of planning the audit? It will help the auditor to devote appropriate attention to important areas. Next, resolve potential problems. Potential problems means problems that might occur in the future. Next, it will help the auditor to organize and manage the audit engagement properly. Next, selection of engagement team members. Also, direction and supervision of engagement team members. And finally, coordination of work done by others such as experts. Right? So, planning will help the auditor to achieve these benefits. There is question number 21, which is, I guess, a straight question only. You go through that question number 21. Okay. Next, planning is a continuous process. It is not a discrete phase. Instead, it is a continual and iterative process. Now, planning includes consideration of timing of certain activities and audit procedures that need to be completed prior to performance of further audit procedure. Some of the examples include analytical procedure, performance of analytical procedure, understanding legal and regulatory framework that is applicable to the entity. All this we discussed in PPT also, right? Determining materiality, whether there is any requirement of involving the work of expert, and performance of any other risk assessment procedures, right? Next, what is meant by a risk assessment procedure? Risk assessment procedures are audit procedures performed to obtain understanding of the entity and its environment, including the entity's internal control, to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement. Okay. So by reading this, you will be able to identify the risk of material misstatement by understanding that particular item. Okay, not only the entire entity. Let's say for example, you wanted to identify risk of material misstatement in the area of debtors. So to identify the risk, you have to understand what that item is, how the controls are present around that item. Okay, about this we will see in depth in SA 315. Okay, how you actually will determine risk of material misstatement. There is a formula for risk of material misstatement. Okay, we'll see that in SA 315. So material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error at financial statement and assertion level. So question number 117, let's see. Question number 1. MG and Co, a firm of auditors having a standing of 30 years, is appointed as statutory auditors of company engaged in manufacturing of defense equipment. Now, due to opening of defense sector by government to private players in recent times, many new companies have entered the fray to manufacture sophisticated defense equipment. Considering technical and complex nature of operations, auditors recognize that involvement of experts in audit is required. Okay, since manufacturing of defense equipment involves certain complex activities which auditor can't understand, he feels that some expert help is required for the auditor to audit this entity. Now, in this situation, does consideration for involvement of experts by auditor fall in the domain of planning activity? Okay, taking decision of whether to take help of expert or not, does it fall in the planning stage? No, planning means the entire aspect. Planning includes strategy, plan, it falls. See, here, in order to avoid confusion, what you can remember is, if at all they are using the term planning, that is continuous tense. Planning means it includes three activities: strategy, plan, and program. If they specifically say audit plan, then you should understand that they are saying to plan. Okay, planning means the complete phase. Got it? So yes, taking decision of whether to involve expert or not is included in the planning stage. Okay, next question 17, right? Can you once see, is it question number 17? Question number 17, if you see, it is asked in May 24 examination. Let's see. CAE is auditor of LM Limited. Before commencing with current year's audit, he initiated planning for the audit. Okay. Planning includes need to consider certain matters prior to the identification and assessment of risk of material misstatements. Enumerate such matters. He is asking some of the example of matters that will be considered in the planning phase. The five things we have seen: analytical procedure to be applied as risk assessment procedure, obtaining general understanding of legal and regulatory framework, determining materiality, expert involvement, performance of other risk assessment procedure. Right? These are some of the five examples of matters that the auditor will consider in the planning phase before actually identifying the risk of material misstatement. Right? We have discussed this. Do you remember? Next. Question number 21. I guess there is some numbering mistake over here, right? After 20, 21, this should be 22. I'll change it. So, question number 22, which was with respect to benefits of audit planning. If you see, in this question also they have given certain case study, and at end they are asking briefly explain why it is necessary to plan the audit of XYZ Limited financial statement. If you see here, nowhere they are asking you explain benefits. Simply they are asking you why it is necessary to plan the audit. That means you should write the advantages of planning the audit. Okay. Yeah. See, in this question, once you identify what they are asking in the question, it becomes easy to answer it. Right? Next. Elements of planning process. There are two elements. First one, preliminary engagement activities and planning activities. Now, in the preliminary engagement activities, there are again three things. What are they? First one, performing client acceptance and continuance procedure. That is, performing procedures regarding acceptance and continuance of client relationship. What these procedures include, such as verifying integrity of principal owners and key management, competence of engagement team to perform the audit engagement, whether your engagement team is competent enough to perform the engagement or not, implications of matters that have arisen during current and previous audit engagement, and in case of initial audit engagement, communication with predecessor auditor. Right? All these will form part of client acceptance and continuance procedure. Right? These points will have impact on your decision of whether to accept the relation with the client or not to accept the relationship with the client. Got it? Next. Next thing is evaluating compliance with five ethical requirements, including independence. So, for this purpose, auditor has to continuously evaluate whether they are complying with the ethical requirements and the independence or not. And also, throughout the audit, engagement partner shall remain alert for evidence of non-compliance with these ethical requirements and independence. And in order to specifically verify compliance with the independence, auditor has to obtain relevant information from the firm to identify and evaluate circumstances and relationship that create a threat to independence. How the firm will have this information? If you remember, in the starting class I have told you, while discussing about the independence, the firms on an annual basis, they will ask their staff to write or to fill up a form of independence. In that form of independence, they have to write down all the entities in which they have invested and all the entities with which they are having relationship. Right? So firm will be having information with respect to all the relationships that the staff of the firm are having with various entities that the firm is auditing. So auditor, the engagement partner, will ask the firm to provide information with respect to independence of my engagement team. Got it? Next, evaluate information on identified breaches, if any, to determine whether they create actual threat to the independence. Next, take appropriate action to eliminate such threat or to reduce such threat. And finally, establishing understanding of terms of engagement. How will you establish understanding of the terms of engagement? Right? Through engagement letter. Next, question number 10. Let's question number 10. CAN, engagement partner of LPS and Associates, is planning for audit of large company. As part of preliminary engagement activities being performed in this regard, he wants to ensure that compliance with independence requirement is adhered. With respect to independence requirement, auditor will specifically perform three things. What are they? Obtain information from the firm that whether there is a continuance of independence or not. Next, he will see actual breaches, whether there are actual breaches that might turn it into threat to the independence, and finally take appropriate action to eliminate such threats, right? So they are asking how shall he form a conclusion that audit firm complies with the independence requirements. Next, moving to the planning activities. In the planning activities there will be three things, right? First one, establishing overall audit strategy, developing audit plan. You can also include here, what you can include here, planning activities include three things: plan, strategy, plan, program. You can also include program here. Okay. Next, so what are the benefits of audit strategy? It will assist the auditor for employment of qualitative resources, allocation of quantity of resources, timing of deployment of resources, and finally management of those resources. Managing resources means directing and supervising those resources. That is known as managing the resources. Question number 18, it will be direct question. You can go through that. And next, factors while establishing overall audit strategy. There are 5 factors we have seen, right? First one is characteristics of engagement has to be identified. Examples of characteristics: financial reporting framework, industry specific reporting requirements, nature of business segments, and expected use of audit evidence obtained in the previous audits. The second factor is ascertaining reporting objectives of the engagement. This reporting objective is also one characteristic of the engagement only. Okay. So reporting objective, these examples include entities, timetable for reporting, discussion with management with respect to type and timing of reports, when they wanted the reports and what type of reports, organization of meetings to discuss NTE of audit, and expected nature timing of communication among engagement team members. And third factor is in which area the effort of engagement team has to be directed. That will also have impact on the strategy, right? So in which areas the engagement team effort will be directed, some of the examples is where the volume of transactions are high, or significant industry developments. Okay, new developments have occurred in that area, so in that area you will direct the more engagement team efforts. Next, significant changes in the financial reporting framework. If at all there is any change in the financial reporting framework in the current year, you will direct the engagement team to audit that area more, you know, strictly or with more attention, right? Next, other significant related developments such as changes in legal requirement affecting the entity. These are some of the examples of areas where you will direct the engagement team's efforts. Next, considering results of preliminary engagement activities and where applicable, whether knowledge gained on other engagements performed by the engagement partner for the entity is relevant. Okay, the knowledge, experience that the auditor has gathered in the preliminary engagement activity and the previous engagements will also impact the strategy that the auditor prepares. Examples include result of previous audits that involved evaluating operating effectiveness of the controls. Okay, in the previous audit, auditor found that the controls were not working properly. So in the current audit, what the auditor will do while preparing the strategy, he will increase his focus in the area of controls, right? Another example, manner in which auditor emphasizes to engage to engagement team members the need to maintaining questioning mind and to exercise professional skepticism, right? In the previous year audit, auditor might have given a brief to the engagement team about the amount of professional skepticism that they have to maintain. But in the current year, the amount of professional skepticism that they have to maintain might vary, right? This also auditor will take, this also will have impact on the development of strategy. Next, finally, ascertaining the NTE of resources necessary to perform the engagement. Example, engagement team selection or budget, etc. Right? Now we'll see the questions. 4, 6, 12, 14, 19. Question number 4. CA CA Shubhendu is a statutory auditor of a social media company. Due to change in information technology regulations by government, it has become mandatory for such companies to constitute grievance redressal mechanism. Okay, due to change in law or regulation, a particular mechanism known as grievance redressal mechanism for users of social media platform of the company, they have to constitute this mechanism. That means grievance redressal means if users are having any problems or users are facing any issues, they have to complaint about those issues to the company. Complaint handling mechanism is known as grievance redressal mechanism. Now that mechanism is mandatory now because of change in law or regulation. Now, failure to comply with regulation can potentially lead to civil and criminal liabilities against the company. Is above factor to be considered by the auditor while framing the audit strategy? Tell me, there is a change in law or regulation. Because of change in law or regulation, you have to implement a mechanism known as grievance redressal mechanism. Whether this aspect has to be considered while developing overall audit strategy, should be considered because change in law or regulation, right? Next, question number 6, right? Question number 6. Shubodh has recently joined an audit firm as an articled clerk. He was in the process of assembling audit working papers in audit file of COP Limited as per the instructions of his senior. While assembling, he noticed following working paper in audit file. Now, this working paper includes timing of various audit activities. Okay, here is a list of audit activity like planning, review by EQCR, audit field work. So each and every audit work, at what date it has to be performed. This document has listed the expected timing of work that has to be done. Now, the above working paper lists certain factors which are considered by the auditor while establishing audit strategy. So, here if you see, timing of work will be considered by the auditor while establishing overall audit strategy, right? So, explain how these consideration highlighted in above working paper could have helped the auditor. It could have helped the auditor to decide at what time and in which manner each work has to be done, right? By going through the above document, it will help the auditor to decide upon timing of the work, right? Because it has listed down timing. See, the auditor shall establish overall audit strategy that sets scope, timing, and direction of the audit, and that guides development of audit plan. Okay, while preparing the audit strategy, the focus of auditor should be, it should support auditor in developing plan also. With that focus, he should develop the strategy. And one of the factors to be taken into consideration while establishing audit strategy relates to ascertaining reporting objectives of the engagement. Helps the auditor to plan the timing. Okay, only if he knows what are the reporting objectives, he can plan at what time the procedures required to achieve those reporting objectives can be done, right? So the respective audit procedures can be planned. Some of the instances are entities timetable for reporting, discussion with the management, organization of meetings among the team with respect to discussion of the timing and extent of the work, and expected nature timing of communication among the engagement team members. So if you see in the given case, working paper highlights that auditor has taken into account expected timelines to plan the audit and nature of the communication required. Since working paper relates to the statutory audit of company, the ascertaining of reporting objectives of engagement helps auditor to plan timing of different audit procedures, also nature of communication. So the question is asking you on which aspect it is, on which aspect you can plan based on the document given over there. You can plan on timing because it has listed down in which time which procedure has to be performed, right? So you need to write that only. Planning, the timing can be planned by you. 4 6 then 12. Question number 12. Yeah. Lotus Limited, Lotus Limited, a rapidly growing manufacturing company, appointed Ridhi and Co. as statutory auditor. The engagement team of Ridhi and Co. identified key areas requiring scrutiny, such as revenue recognition, inventory valuation, and related party transaction. They have identified that these three areas are key areas. Now, based on his professional judgment, CA Ravi, the engagement partner, directed the engagement team to focus on these critical areas. Okay. Emphasizing the need for detailed testing to ensure accuracy and compliance. CA Ravi has directed that you focus on these three areas. Now, give some examples of factors need to be considered by CA Ravi for establishing audit strategy. What are the five factors that we have discussed? Basically, here the question it is speaking about identified key areas requiring scrutiny such as revenue recognition. Okay. Yeah, characteristics of the engagement. So Basically, should we list down all of them or okay? Considering factors that in the author's professional judgment. Okay, if you see the question, it is speaking about certain key areas where the efforts of engagement team members will be focused into the areas where the risk is high. In the five factors that we have discussed, one of the factor is the efforts of the engagement team will be focused on the areas where the risk is high. If you see in the question, no, see, that's why you will confuse to write which answer, whether to write down all the five factors or is the question speaking about any specific factor, because nowhere it is mentioned about efforts of the team member, but they have said there are three key areas and auditor has directed the engagement team to focus on those key areas. So if you see, one of the factor that is dealing with this aspect is efforts of team members, so you have to write examples related to that factor. Okay, got it? Any doubt? So examples include where volume of transactions is high, in that area the team efforts will be directed. Next, significant industry developments such as changes in the industry regulation. You understood the question, right? Hmm? Next, significant changes in financial reporting framework, other significant relevant developments. If you understand the question, it is simple to write. You know these points already we have discussed, but the way in which question is framed and what they are asking, you should understand. Okay. Next question, 14. Question number 14. In establishing In establishing overall audit strategy, auditor shall, among the other considerations, ascertain nature, timing, extent of resources necessary to perform engagement. Explain those considerations in detail. So here they are asking for establishing audit strategy, certain considerations are there. Here you need to write all the five considerations because they haven't spoke about any specific consideration. They are simply saying nature, timing, extent of resources necessary to perform the audit. So you need to list down all the five factors we have discussed. No need to write the examples. Okay, because they have asked about all the five factors. Got it? Next question. 19. Question number 19. If you see, they have asked it in Jan 25. AP and Co. Chartered accountants are appointed as statutory auditor of Heavy Industries Limited, a listed company engaged in manufacturing of electric vehicles. For the financial year 23-24, as per the recent guideline issued by regulatory authority, every listed company is required to maintain digital database of all the personnel who could access books of the company to avoid insider trading. Okay, a law and regulation has required a requirement, okay, has put a new requirement on the company to maintain the digital database of all the person who can access books of accounts of the company so as to avoid insider trading. Now in case, you know, insider trading, right? I've explained. Now in case of non compliance, hefty fines may be imposed on the company. CAP is the engagement partner from auditor firm for the audit of Heavy Industries Limited. Basically CAP is the engagement partner. During planning, CAP planned that he would inquire from in-house IT head of company about the maintenance of digital database to identify and assess risk of non-compliance with regulatory guidelines. In the light of above facts, explain the following. Basically what CAP has decided is company has to maintain a digital database. Now I will inquire with the digital admin, the IT head of the company. I will inquire with the IT head of the company whether the company is actually maintaining a digital database of the people having access to the accounting records or not. By inquiring with him, I will obtain evidence. Like this, CAP thought. Now they are asking whether CAP is required to consider about maintenance of digital database while framing the audit strategy. Whether she should consider about digital database while framing the audit strategy, she should consider. Why? Because this is requirement of a new law or regulation. Okay, law or regulation has put a new requirement, so you should scope in this aspect into your strategy. Next, whether procedure planned by CAP are in line with SA-300. So what procedure CAP has planned? She has planned to inquire with IT head. Obviously, IT head will be having knowledge with respect to whether digital database is maintained or not. If you ask that person only, he can give you the information. So she has asked the right person only. So the procedure that she has performed is correct only, right? So you need to write these two things. Got it? That's it. Any other question? Yeah. Next, audit plan versus strategy. What is the difference between audit plan and strategy? Audit strategy focuses on what and when, whereas plan focuses on how. Audit strategy is prepared first. After audit strategy, based on strategy, plan will be prepared. And the example that we have discussed for strategy and plan. Next, contents of audit plan. What will be there in the audit plan? RAP, FAP, and other procedures, right? Risk assessment procedures, further audit procedures, planned other audit procedures. So these three will be the contents of audit plan. Got it? So there is question number 3, right? Time is 1:30 and my tab stopped working. It also feeling hungry, I guess. Okay, shall we close it today here? Tab is also not working. So in the tomorrow's class, we'll discuss the remaining questions and the audit program concept. And then tomorrow's class, this chapter gets completed and we'll also start with new chapter. Okay.